I know you know how to do this division, but we're going to review it today. I know you can take out a calculator and punch it in, but we're going to review how to we're going to review how to do the long division, because what we do here is going to be exactly how we're going to do long division today with algebra expressions, with x's and x squareds and y's. And does that sound like fun? I can tell some of you are thinking, I don't even like long division with real numbers. Now I got to do it with letters. I can tell by the look on their faces. Some of them. Some look really excited, though. At least one. So you remember how to do this, or maybe not. You know, you have to ask yourself, 23 times what is 64? Or in other words, how many times does 23 go into 64? 2? And remember, we put it up here. And what did you do after you put it up there? The next step was to multiply. You multiplied this, and you put the answer under here. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. Then what did you do? You subtracted. And here we have to borrow, so that's 8. This is a 5. 5 taken 4 is 1. So you put your answer down here after you subtract. And then what? And then you bring down the next number and you do the whole process all over again, right? How many times does 23 go into 188? 8 maybe? Should we try 8? And what did you do after you put it up there? We multiplied again, right? You multiplied 8 times 3 is 24. And you multiplied 8 times 2 is 16, 17, 18. And then what did you do? Yeah. So you just get 4. And before you learned about decimals, that was it. That's where you stopped. Almost. There was a couple of things you could do. Sometimes back in the day you would write remainder of 4, right? And the other thing you could do is, what do I have left? I have 4 divided over the thing I'm dividing by. I have 4 divided by 23 left. I have 4 out of 23 left. And so up here then, that was your answer. Do you sort of remember doing that? Because today we're going to divide like this. Eight x squared plus 6x plus 3. And it's going to be the same exact idea, except now we're just going to throw some letters in there. You already know how to do it, though. I know you already know how to do it. So you're going to start out here with this one, and you're going to start with the first one here. Start with the first and the first. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. When you're doing this, the terms have to be in order of the powers of x. Do you see x to the 2, x to the 1, x to the 0? If they're not in order, everything's going to be all kittywampus. It's going to go all haywire. Going to run off the tracks real fast. So they got to be in order. X to the 2, x to the 1, x to the 0. Out here, they also have to be in order. X to the 1, x to the 0. So Make sure they're in order, which they are. So you're going to start with the first one out here and the first one in here. And you're going to ask yourself, just like over here, what times this would give me this? 4 times what is 8? 2. X times what would give me x squared? How many x's do I have to multiply by? 1. So I'm going to put a 2x up there. And remember, what did we do after we put it up there? We multiplied next, right? So you ask, 4x times what is 8x? 4 times 2 is 8. X times another x will give you the x squared. So next we're going to multiply, just like we did over there. This times this times this. What's 2x times 4x? 2 times 4 is x times x, x squared. Don't forget, you also have to multiply this 1 though, right? Over here you had to multiply both digits. So we have to multiply, what's 2x times 1? Just 2x. Now, after we multiplied, the next step was to subtract. Here's where you have to be a little bit careful because you're going to be subtracting this whole thing. You got to subtract both of those. Everybody always remembers to subtract the first thing. 8x squared, take away 8x squared, that drops out. But then I have 6x, take away 2x. What's 6x take away 2x? 4x. Right? 6x take away 2x, 4x. After you're done subtracting over here, what did we do next? We brought down the next term and we did it all over again. So we're going to bring down this plus 3 and we're going to go all over again. So you're going to ask, 4x times what is 4x? 1, right? 4x times 1. So now multiply. 1 times 4x is 4x. 1 times 1 is 1. What do I do next? Subtract. And remember, you are subtracting this whole thing. 4x take away 4x drops out. 3 take away 1, 2. And there's nothing else to bring down. So you're done. Here's what we're going to do with the remainder. This thing, it's a positive 2 over whatever we're dividing by. Remainder over whatever is out there. Does that make sense? Can you see how it's almost exactly like that other kind of dividing? It's almost exactly the same. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Should we do one more just for fun? I can tell you're having loads of fun. 34x take away 16 over. Now, what happens when it's like that? Uh-oh. First, you have to figure out what's going to go inside and what's going to go outside. Which one goes inside, top or bottom? Top. The top goes inside, the bottom goes outside. Top over bottom. Inside, outside. Inside, outside. So this one is already in order. X to the first, x to the 0. So that one's going to go out here. The top one goes inside, But remember we said they have to go in order? In order. So which one of these is going to go first? 15x to the second. Then what? And it's a positive, so put a 34 plus 34x, and then last, the minus 16. Do you see that? X to the second, x to the first, x to the 0. Make sense? And so first you're going to start out with this one and this one. Don't get your undies in a bundle without all the rest of that stuff. You ask, what times 5 gives me 15? And by the way, when you do these, it should always go in evenly. It should always go into that evenly. So if it doesn't, then you got it set up wrong. So 5 times what is 15? Hopefully everybody says 3. What times x is x squared? I need 2 of them and I only have 1, so I have to have 1 more, right? Next, we're going to multiply this. What's 3x times 5x? 15x squared. X times x is x squared. And then you have to do the 3x times negative 2. What's 3 times negative 2? Is that right? Negative 6x? What comes next? Right, I have to subtract. But make sure, you have to be careful. We're subtracting all of this. What's 15x? Take away 15x squared. Take away 15x squared. Nothing. 34x. I'm subtracting negative. Be careful. What do you do when you subtract negative? What do you do when you subtract negative? Yeah, really, it's like adding it then, right? Right? And so what will that be? 40x? I think it's like 34x plus 6x, 40x. Now we're going to bring down the 16 negative and start all over again. Right? 5x times what is 40x? 5 times what is 40? 8. Positive, right? Positive 8. And it's an x, and it's an x. I don't need any more x's. It's 1 and 1. I don't need any more. So just a plus 8 up there. Now we're going to multiply. What's 8 times 5x? I think that's 40x. What's 8 times negative 16? And we're going to subtract. And be careful because we're going to subtract this whole thing. 40x, take away 40x, goes away. Negative 16, and I'm subtracting negative. Again, subtract negative. So that's like plus then, isn't it? What do you get? Negative and positive. 0. There's no remainder for this one. Is that okay? You can have some that come out even. So this up here, that would just be your answer. And by the way, everybody knows, I assume you know, but I'll just say it. You need to show this work to get credit for that answer, right? It's long division. This is the long division. Does it make sense? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions so far? I just have one little thing to say. One little thing to point out. Two little things to point out. If you do this correctly, this first term, should always drop out. Do you see the 8x squared drops out? The 4x drops out. Do you see over here the 15x squared? It goes away, drops out. The 40x, it drops out. If you do it correctly, this first thing should drop out every single time. If it doesn't, you did something wrong. Also, when you multiply, do you see how the x squareds line up and the x's? The x's and the number terms line up. If you don't have them lining up, you did something wrong. The x squareds should always line up. The x's should line up. The like terms should be under each other. And if they're not, that means there's a problem. Usually people forget that these have to go in order. Do you see how they weren't in order up there? You have to put them in order. X to the second, x to the first, x to the 0. And one other thing, please don't try to do this one because I'm just making it up. So if you were going to set this one up, this goes inside, this goes outside. So I have 5x plus 2, and inside I have to start with x to the second. How many x to the first do I have up here? I don't have any, right? There are no x's. There aren't any x's. When you set this up, if there's a term missing, like x to the first, you have to put 0 of those in there, right? So watch, I have to have an x to the second, x to the first, and an x to the 0. Whatever you start with, they have to go in order, and every single one has to be there. X to the fifth, x to the fourth, x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, x to the 0. And if I start with x to the second, then everyone below that has to be listed. And if there aren't any, if there's a term missing, like no x's, I have to put that plus 0x in there. And then work it out from there. The rest will all work out if you remember to put it in there. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It'll probably make more sense when you start doing it, right? Oh, well, these take a while to do, so I'm not going to assign all that many. They take a little bit of time to do. And you have to be really careful. You have to make sure you're nice and neat and orderly, right? And you also have to remember when you subtract, you've got to subtract both of those numbers down there. Those are the most common mistakes. So I think we shall go just, it's not going to be that many. How about, I think we'll just go 1 to 9 the odds. That's page 276. 276, 1 to 9 the odds. They take a while.